Good afternoon, and welcome to a special edition of Onyx Expressions. I am here at the Second Baptist Church of Atlantic City with the pastor of the church, Reverend Collins Days. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's good to be here.
For being available. Thank you so much
problem.
for being willing to speak to me. And I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while because you have such a perspective in regard to the tone and tenor of the city and the things that are happening in the community. You've seen so many changes. You've been a part of so many changes. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely, and good to have you, and thank you for putting me on.
Thank you. I would like to start by just getting a little bit of part of your journey. I know you're from South Carolina.
Right.
Darlington, correct?
That's correct.
How does someone come to find their way to Atlantic City? Now, Jersey has a lot of churches, you know, North Jersey, South Jersey, and some even call it Central Jersey, which I dispute.
Right.
But Atlantic City, how did that happen?
Well, you know, I'm a country boy. I pastored a church in Darlington, South Carolina for 13 and a half years. And it was very rural, so much so the nearest member lived 3 miles away, I mean, on a country road. And my pastor, Reverend Dr. Jim Dandy Blue, had a relative here and knew of the church. And when the church came open, he recommended that I come. And I said no, I was happy where I was. And he sent some information unbeknownst to me, and that's how it all, started.
Now, from previous conversations with you, because we go back a ways,
Right.
You were at Round Oak Baptist.
Correct.
And weren't they just finishing up or in the middle of a building phase?
Yeah, we were just getting ready to build a new sanctuary, and we put it on hold because I felt the Lord calling me here. And I just visited them just recently in the new facility, and they're doing very well.
How hard was that to do?
The hardest decision I ever made in my life, and not only for me, but my family as well as them. We were family, we were friends, and I loved it there. They loved me, and we still have a tremendous relationship.
Now, how many years were you pastor there?
13 and a half years I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, there's the inevitable culture shock whenever you go from one dynamic to the other. What was that culture shock for you and your family when you from South Carolina to AC?
It was like night and day. The pastor in a rural area. Every day my members came by to visit me. They bring teas and cakes and pies. We fish together, we hunt together. Every Sunday I ate at a member's house. I knew everybody in the community, not only in the church, because I know my members' relatives, I knew their friends, and the community was a very close-knit community. We didn't have to deal with homelessness, with very limited joblessness. Just let everybody work. And when I came here, it was a culture shock to see, to deal with Atlantic City still going through its transition. The community is going through its transition. To come here, and probably in this block alone, there were 30 abandoned houses in this block. To see the pain of addiction and alcoholism, and then to come into a city with gambling and all the positive and the negative things that go along with gambling. It was, and then even the northern atmosphere of worship and the way they do church was totally different.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Because you have the unique perspective of pastoring for many years in the South and then coming to North and being here for 19 years. What was some of that difference?
Well, one was being friendly. And the relationship with pastors, I had an open door policy at my home. Members would come. It was 6 months before I even got a telephone call from anyone in Atlantic City.
Wow.
And no one visited us, no one showed us around. No one gave us really the lay of the land. And so that was probably the hardest part, not to have relationships with members and people of the community. But after 6 months or so, yeah, it started to break.
Now, I'm going to ask you for a moment of transparency because 19 years and looking in hindsight and looking what you've done for this city.
Almost 25 now.
25
years here, almost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And looking back in retrospect, because you've done an awful lot in this community, was there a point early on where you said, maybe this wasn't
Many times the first year. Actually, the church that I left gave me a year to make up my mind to see whether I would come back. They said anytime within the year, we wouldn't even look for a pastor or anything.
Oh, wow.
And all you have to do is just show up on Sunday. And there were times, many times, we thought about packing up the kids and the animals and head back home.
Everything, huh?
Yeah.
Doing a whole Noah's Ark thing, just pack up the ark and just head on back.
Head home, yeah.
Okay. But that speaks to the profound relationship that you had with your church in South Carolina, the fact that they kept the door open.
Right. Yeah. You know, we had a very unique relationship, and we still do. You know, I still talk to their pastor quite regularly as well. And I go down to fellowship with them as often as I can. And if I'm in town, they'll certainly, some of the members will stop by to see me and call me. Or, matter of fact, when I drive into either Darlington or Hartsville, they know when I'm in town. They see me coming in, the phone starts ringing, so you're in town,
wow.
and then people start calling.
When you got to Atlantic City, couple questions. What surprised you? What pleasantly surprised you? And what mortified you?
Well, one of the things that pleasantly surprised me was, you know, people are people everywhere. And, you know, I travel and do ministry around the world, and people are people. We were able to build relationships very quickly after 6 months. After people kind of standoffish and found out, you know, who we were. We built relationships very quickly. The city is small enough that you can have an impact on the city. You can get to know people because it's so, you know, it has an urban feel, but it's a small town.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so that part appealed to us. And then one of the things that was pleasant to us, because every time I've come to Jersey before, I always went to North Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So coming to Atlantic City was my first time coming to South Jersey. And coming to South Jersey and seeing how rural South Jersey is, you know, I said, you know, I can deal with that. I can have the best of two worlds. So very soon after I got here, I bought a farm. And so I have a farm out in Mays Landing, and I live here in the city. And so I have the best of two worlds. You know, every day I go to the farm. So I have my rural piece, and then I come back to the city. So, you know.
Wow. One of the things that is kind of missing in our tradition used to be that the pastor lived in the community, and you still do that.
Absolutely.
You came here, you stayed here, and you integrated yourself and ingratiated yourself into the community.
Yep.
At what point did you say, I feel like I'm home now?
You know, I don't think it took very long. I love Atlantic City. I love the people in Atlantic City. I'm committed to the city. I'm excited about what is happening. I also feel the pains because I deal with that every day. The struggles, living in a marginal community. And I think it's important for me to be in the community. That way I can, you know, I'm always in touch with what's going on. I can react very quickly to what's going on. And I can also identify the struggles of the people in Atlantic City, because I live here. All my kids went to school here. You know, they didn't go to private school, they went to public school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I taught Carson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, lived right across the street from the school.
Yep.
I think it's just, you know, I can walk here to, you know, some days I walk into the office, you know, and most of the time if I'm meeting in the city, I walk to the places that I'm meeting. So I can keep the, you know, I can address people as we go and deal with people as we go through the street. So I love this place. It's so exciting.
What I thought was cool was when I was a teacher at MLK school, I would see you coming in early in the morning and hitting the gym. And I just thought that was so different, because normally when we saw our pastors in the community, we saw them in their pastoral light. We didn't really get to see them in their everyday, hey, how you doing capacity. We saw them in their role, but we didn't see them in their quote unquote humanity.
Well, all of that's the role. You know, I think the only time I wear a suit is Sunday mornings and funerals. I go to all my meetings the same way. You know, I think Jesus would wear blue jeans. And the people that we deal with are regular people who are going through struggles. And so I try to identify with them as much as I possibly can. That's why, you know, I'm in the community. I try to attend the community events. You know, I try to dress in a way that's approachable, that's not standoffish. Because, you know, a shepherd smell like sheep.
That's true.
You know.
And Jesus said, my sheep know my voice.
Yeah.
So now let's go back to that moment where you got here and said, what in the world do I do with this? What was it that grabbed your heart for ministry that you saw in the community that really grieved you and said, okay, this is my pastoral place to do something?
You know, I guess it started, my mom used to say, even when I was a kid, she said, you know, most people bring home stray dogs and stray cats, and you bring home stray people. You know, I love people, and I have a real heart for humanity, and especially those who are hurting. And this city has so many people who are broken, who are hurting, who need a second chance. And I think that's what church is all about. I think that's what Christ is all about, and is to minister to people who are hurting. You know, one of the things about Christ is that I always love when I read it. The Bible says Jesus looked on them and was moved by compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many people in the city who people see every day, but they become invisible to them, and they're not moved by anything. You know, they see people hurting and they're not moved. They see people, you know, struggling to survive, and they're not moved. They see people with, insufficient, safe, decent housing, and they're not moved. All of those things move me. And that's what excites me. That's why I get up every day, and that's why, you know, I try to work in the community, because, you know, I can't look on suffering and hurt and hopelessness and not be moved by it.
How have you found the collaborative nature of the faith community in terms of partnering in regard to alleviating the suffering and the hurt?
In that area, we can do a whole lot better. One of the things that we are grateful for, the fellowship of churches and interfaith community have worked really good on issues that face us, violence in the community. But there's so many other areas that we should work much better on, because there are so many problems in the city. There's multiple problems, and they're bigger than one individual, one church, one group. And the only way you're going to attack it is that you've got to come together. And I don't care what circumstance we have, what problem we have in the city. We all have the right. We have enough resources. We've got all the answers. We've got enough money within our churches. We've got enough expertise in our churches. But all we got to do is rally those things that we can solve. In Lake City and Atlantic County is really not that big, especially Atlantic City, 48 blocks, and 48 blocks and probably 60-something churches. We just take one block and better the block that we're on. So we are working together on some things, but we could do much better.
Okay. If I could kind of shift gears and talk about some of the initiatives that you have brought forth from Second Baptist Church. What are some of the initiatives that you are most proud of that you've introduced?
We've done a lot of different programs that we have done Ministers Home Church program for youth, where you take them out of the criminal justice system, put them with mentors, and when they finish the program, then now they're out of the criminal justice system. That's one of the things we've taken them right out of Harvard Field. We've done hundreds of kids that way. That's one program we're happy about, really excited about, because I see kids now that would have been in the system that's not in the system because of that. Christian recovery for addicts. We've sent people to rehabs at no charge, around the country. Not too long ago, we sent someone. He came back a few weeks ago and came to my office. I didn't even recognize him because he put on 50 pounds. And, when I saw, he was just a walking skeleton before we sent him. And he's working out, trying to get a job. We've done housing projects. We've done so many different housing, senior housing. We've done single family homes. First-time homeowners. We've done entrepreneur programs. We did a $500,000 round robin program, getting people in business. Okay. We've done civil rights garden. We've done all kind of programs. Even when Superstorm Sandy came, we led the effort in rebuilding Atlantic City.
I was going there next.
Yeah, which is very interesting because people don't realize that Atlantic City is the most impacted city in the state. The most impacted, but we think of Long Beach Island and other places but we had the most impact in a marginal community. We had over 10,000 homes that was negatively impacted by Superstorm Sandy. And we got the least amount of money. We only got about $3 million in funding.
Wow.
But the wonderful thing about it is we took $3 million and we rebuilt more houses than any other LTRG in the state with less money. Wow. We rebuilt over 168 houses.
Wow.
And helped another 400 or 500 homeowners with appliances, bedding, heating, and air conditioning.
I remember when that happened, and you were actually interviewed in the press. I remember reading that article about the need for the church to step in the community to come together and help those who have been impacted. In regard to the church's involvement in the community, I remember reading about Martin Luther King, and there were some churches that actually, and even to some degree his church, that were trying to get him to pull back a little bit and stay out of social affairs because they didn't want him getting too involved in certain things. What is your perspective on the church's involvement in all things community, civil rights?
Well, I come from a Southern church, a Southern tradition, liberation theology. When the church that I pastored was a church in the afternoon in its history, church on Sunday, but it was school during the week. Everything that happened in the community happened around the church, whether it was burying, whether it was a funeral, whether it was some kind of racial injustice. It was always the church that was at the forefront leading. And I believe the church is going to have relevance. It has to have a social conscience. And if it doesn't have a social conscience, then what good is it in the community? But every church has to impact the community. The Bible says, who takes a candle and hide it on a bushel. And I think that's why it's so important. That's my, I cut my teeth on that as a young pastor. That's what our churches have always done. I've always seen churches lead out in the community, whether it's something economic, or whether it's something a racial injustice, or whether it's just issues in the community that need to be addressed. It was always the church that did that.
Did you have to? I'm not going to say explain, because some things that happen in our community don't need explaining. We live it. But did you have to get the church on board with that social justice piece?
Well, I've been here a long time now, and so what happens, the longer you're at a church, begins to take on your personality, and you begin to attract people with those kinds of ideas and thoughts. Second has always been, without any hesitation, it comes from a tradition. Dr. Cole, when he was here, he was doing housing, he was involved politically, and so it was not anything that was new to Second. It was more the same. What we just went more into programmatic types of things, in terms of, but anytime I ask them to do something, they are really on board, most supportive. Matter of fact, we've got a plan, we've got a 5-point plan to impact the city. Our goal is not just to be a church and to deal with the members of the church. We worked 4 months, all the body, in developing how do we want to impact the city of Atlantic City. Not just the neighborhood, but the whole city of Atlantic City. And one of those, we wanted to deal with homelessness. And out of that came the Turning Point Day Center for the Homeless. And we've got a plan for that, for the youth. We're getting ready to put together a program that we're going to do a 3-on-3 basketball game like nobody's heard of. We plan on giving out $6,000 in cash prizes to people who win.
Awesome.
We want to really deal with the youth and the adults. It's going to be for anybody that wants to do 3-on-3.
Now, I want to stick a pin in what you just mentioned about the Turning Point Day Center. which is housed at right by Allen AME Church, the community life center that was there.
Correct.
I would love you to talk a little bit about the vision for that and how that came into being and what it's designed to do.
Well, Turning Point, one of the big problems in Atlantic City, is homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they are homegrown or whether they come in, homelessness is a problem. And when you got homelessness, you're going to have loitering when people are all over the place. We've got a tremendous ministry in Atlantic City, the Mission, that house them at night and offer some programs as well. But during the day, they disperse. They're in the library. They were, on the streets, bus station, boardwalk. And if you're trying to be a destination town, and with the amount of homelessness and loitering and vagrancy we have in Atlantic City, there was nowhere for them to go. And so if there's nowhere for them to go, where do you expect them to be? They're people, There's somebody's mother, there's somebody's father. So we had been trying for at least 3 years to develop a day center. We knew they could go somewhere in the day, and at night didn't have a place to go today. We wanted to make it a place that offered all the amenities that you have when you go home.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have anywhere else to go, you can go home, you can take a shower, you can eat, you can surf the net, you can wash your clothes, you can make phone calls, you can watch TV. And we wanted to do that, but that was to be the carrot to draw on. But while they're there, we wanted to offer programs, for addiction, life skills, job training, and very mental health programs and those kinds of things. And so that's what Turning Point is about. So we opened. Actually, we just celebrated 1 year last week.
I read about it. I read about the formulation of it, and also read about the goals and objectives for it, but also reading about the upcoming celebration.
Yeah.
So that is an excellent ministry, and it seems like what you're saying is that the church has to impact the community from a holistic perspective.
Absolutely.
In order to be effective.
Right.
Now, if I can take a little turn here, if I could. Social justice, speaking of social justice, and you being from South Carolina, I want to get your feelings about when you heard about the tragedy that took place in Charleston, which was racially motivated. What was your initial thought, and what did your heart say?
Oh, my heart and guts were wrenched. Number one, because Charleston is historic town. It's where the slaves came. That's where they had the auction block for slaves. Most of the slaves in that area came in from in the slave blocks of Charleston, and in one of my favorite cities. All of us have Bible studies. Our doors are always open.
Mm-hmm.
We're always open to community.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who came and sat with Bible study, people in Bible study didn't do such a heinous act.
And we're welcomed.
Oh, yeah.
It was welcomed.
Yeah, it was heart wrenching, but it's what our society is about. That racism. There's a strong undercurrent of racism, and not only and that really opened the door for that. Now we've got it almost legitimized on the national level through the White House, which is reminds us that we've got a long way to go. The Civil Rights Guard that we help facilitate building. One of the very interesting things about design is that there's columns with quotes from many civil rights leaders, but the columns are, if you've been there, the columns are not capped; they're unfinished.
Yep.
To let you know that the struggle
is not over.
Is not over, and we cannot be lax. We still have to be vigilant in working and dealing and fighting racial injustice, because it's something that I've never believed, especially after the election of President Obama twice, and then to have the administration we have today is quite disturbing.
It's kind of funny, but it's not. I posted on my Facebook, because my name, of course, being John Gray. There's another pastor, John Gray, who's kind of prominent.
I always think about you when I get John Gray.
And you know what? I actually get questions and get likes on
Y'all
my
favor a little bit.
yeah.
Well.
And are you that John Gray? And I posted, I was not the John Gray that was at the meeting with President Trump. But it kind of, when I saw this transcripts, when I saw the video, it kind of made me feel a little ambivalent about that whole dialogue. What's your take as a pastor who's been in the city long enough to have seen so much, and people look to you for spiritual guidance in all matters? What was your take on that?
Well, I kind of take it this way. I look at John Gray's background. John Gray had some little tenure here in the Jersey area.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked with one of the leading pastors in our area, Dr. Soares.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he went to Olstein's church in Houston. And so his experience is a little different. And then he left there and went to a church in South Carolina that was founded by a Caucasian pastor that really blacks gravitated to in South Carolina. So I already know that many of the pastors already had a little animosity because they kind of pulled a lot of the cream of the crop from their membership to that church.
Mm-hmm.
And so John didn't have a warm welcome from the community, as you would say, because of things beyond his control.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be invited to Trump. Now, listen, I agree that a lot of stuff that you can't do and get accomplished, that needs to get accomplished, protesting from the outside. There are times you need to be at the table.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be at the table. But I think this time, if he had to do it over again, he would not have done it.
He would listen to his wife.
Yeah, the backlash, there are times, I say oftentimes, I remember one time I was in South Carolina, we had a very, a governor that was not well liked. And I got an invitation to come to something he was hosting. And I was sharing with one of my colleagues, and he told me, he said, if I were you, I wouldn't go. And I said to him, it's easy to say that when you don't have an invitation. So oftentimes when you get an invitation, you got to weigh it out,
Mm-hmm.
what you think that is going to go. And so to be in a situation, circumstance, and have an invitation. But, I think now he sees that it was far more detrimental than he could have done good.
Does this climate make us more cynical, or should we be more hopeful, optimistic about the direction we're going in?
Well, I think, I'm the ultimate optimist. That, bad situations and circumstances oftentimes bring out some of the best in people. And some of the people who, that would not normally be vocal are. And, I've got some friends of mine who are staunch supporters of Donald Trump. We have discussions concerning various things, and we still get along. They're great, wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people who are far more adamant about standing up for what is right than I am. And, and it's, so I think in the end of the day, if any problem is going to be solved, it first has to be addressed, and people have to recognize it. And I think that's one of the great things that's coming out of it, because when President Obama, we thought when he was elected, the first term, we thought, oh, this is a new day, this is a new world, and all of a sudden we got slapped with reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good thing, because now that we can really address it at its core, that we can educate people, that we can confront that which is wrong. And now with the Black Lives Movement, we have seen, a generation get involved that, has not before. So I think it's good all the way around.
I think the African American viewership of political shows or CNN, MSNBC, whatever, I think it has risen dramatically because we're more aware of the political climate.
Yeah, but you just can't watch one news source. You got to, sometimes I watch Fox, and, I try to get, I try to be well-rounded in my viewpoints, because you got to hear the argument.
You're right. I listen to Hannity, and most people, they'd be surprised to know that, but I listen to Hannity and Tucker Carlson, because in order to be good at a debate, you have to listen to what's being given to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do. I listen to where people are. I listen to Laura Ingraham very loud and clear what she's just said about her comment about immigration. I heard her loud and clear.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware of that. So I want to bring back to a micro level, and I want to close out by Atlantic City. What do you envision for the city of Atlantic City going forward? Where we have a new mayor. He's a lot more out and about in terms of he's more social media savvy than previous mayors. He's very visible. What do you see or vision for Atlantic City going forward?
Well, I think that, for the last 5-6 years, people were looking at Atlantic City in a very negative light and thinking that, that it might be the end of the city. I never thought that. I knew that we were going to bounce back. I always felt that Atlantic City had too much to offer. We had a tank of gas for 60 million people. We got the beach. We've got so much beauty, so much opportunity. We got a skilled workforce. So I knew that Atlantic City was going to turn around. I didn't know that it was going to have such a wonderful impact so quickly. I just saw an article the other day that see was now employing 30,000 people again. And they still got job openings. They've laxed some of the rules that people can get to work. Stockton is coming. We're really excited about Stockton, and what it's going to do, and the spinoff that's going to have in businesses with students coming in, and restaurants, new restaurants coming in. More jobs as well. South Jersey Gas. And there's an interest now. My concern is two things. One is that they say when the tide rises, all the boats rise, but when that normally happens, our boats have holes in it. The good thing is that Hard Rock and met Mr. Gingoli. He has a real strong social consciousness and a commitment to the city. I've seen and evidence. He's helped us out even with Turning Point. But I do have a concern with housing, because gentrification, in terms of, and I welcome all people into the city, but we've got to make sure that the local residents have safe, decent housing, and that we can pay the taxes, that people who want to live in Atlantic City can live here. I love the city. I want to stay in the city, but I want to make sure that anybody
can have that opportunity.
We need to work on more housing, more affordable housing. We got to get some SROs, for people to get started. We got some first-time home ownership, because the more home ownership you have, the more stable community is going to be.
Absolutely.
So I'm concerned about gentrification, because a lot of times when people come in, everything goes up. And now the market is heating up a little bit. So we got to be on top of that. We can't. This is something we got to be proactive about politically. We've got to be proactive about this in terms of community-wise. We've got to get ahead of this and put some agendas on the program, on the plans, and on the table, that we're a part of the agenda of local people.
And as always, you'll make it loud and clear that you'll be there keeping them honest.
That's one thing. I can't keep my mouth shut, and I'll always be standing for what is right. I'll be standing for citizens, and I'll speak for those who don't have the voice to speak for. As long as I'm able.
That's our prophetic call, as those who have been called to tell the word and preach the word.
Yep, I'll hold them accountable.
Pastor Days, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good
This
to see
was
you.
a wonderful, awesome dialogue. And at this time, I would like to invite you, if there's anything you'd like to share with my viewers, any words of wisdom, anything you'd like to share, anything that's coming down the pike from Second, please, by all means.
No, I'd just like to say, come by and see what we're doing over at Turning Point. It'll be a great benefit, a great blessing to come, and we need volunteers. As a matter of fact, we're running Turning Point all by volunteers,
Right.
And so it's by God's grace and by the wonderful hearts of people that we're able to serve that community. And we'll always be doing something. So come back, we'll touch bases again about some of the things that's coming out.
Excellent. Once again, this is Onyx Expressions, and this is Pastor Days, and I thank him because he truly has a shepherd's heart for this city. And I once again just thank you for just making yourself available as always. You've always been available. I mean, from the time I met you, you just gave me your personal cell phone number and said, call me. You've always made yourself available.
Everybody in Lake City has it.
So I thank you so much. So I'm supposed to feel special, man.
I know.
Once, thank you for viewing, and we do have a couple of announcements for Honest Expressions. Don't forget our Power Talk Conference 2018 at Stockton University, August 18th. That is going to be an inspirational and impactful event. And I would like to announce the winner of our Inspiration Pass. That would be Mrs. Journey Mann of Vineland, New Jersey. Journey Mann of Vineland, New Jersey, you are the winner of the Inspiration Pass to attend Power Talk 2018, igniting your passion for your purpose. Once again, be safe, be blessed, and as I always say, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Take care. All righty.
Good. That was great.